Player 2 has joined the game.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Patreon exclusive episode of the Two Player Co-op Podcast. Obviously, you know I'm Kevin. You know who this guy is.
Go on. I'm not used to saying my own name.
I know. I tried to throw you off. The whole rigmarole. Thank you guys for supporting us. You don't need us to go through the whole thing. Seriously, thank you guys so much for supporting us. It means the world. What we're doing for this episode, I don't know what I ended up calling it, as we were saying at the end of the last regular episode. We're going to rank our games of the year from the past decade. And these are individual lists. We didn't combine them or anything. We don't know what our lists look like. But basically we said, okay, my game of the year for 2010 is this. My game for 2011 is this. And then we rank those 10 games 10 to 1 to see what is the ultimate game of the years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The funny thing is some of these games I didn't play when they came out that year.
Samesies.
But retroactively, they were my games of that year. They were my game of that year. Doesn't matter. We're going to rank them.
That's me for 1, 2, 3, 4 of mine.
It was 3 for me.
Let's get right into it.
3 of them for me.
Oh, I didn't write the year. I guess I probably should have written the year.
I'll be able to. We'll say. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'll go first. Number 10 for me. 2012 Journey.
Same.
Hey!
I think that was the year when I was looking up the games. It was either that or 13. I don't remember which one of these was 13.
13 was Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto 5, Link Between
Oh, well, then
Worlds.
it's not 13.
Okay.
It was 12. Terribly weak year. There was like, I was looking through these and I'm like...
Also. 2014, IGN's Game of the Year was Dragon Age. And everybody's like, whatever.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's kind of in a way, but I think 2019 was a better year. But it's kind of like, I guess it's Control or Sekiro or Death Stranding. Yeah. Like, Resident Evil 2, I thought was going to win everybody's Games of the Year award, but it didn't. But again, it came out in January. I think people forgot about it.
Right, yeah.
But Journey, never played anything like it. I've only played through it one time. At some point, I would like to go back and play it again. But it's just like the core of that game is just the first time you play it. And experiencing that journey for those 2 hours is just unlike anything I've ever played. It's so emotional. There's no dialogue. There doesn't need to be. I remember when you find out, when you finally realize that, like, oh, that's not an AI.
That's another
Somebody's
person.
controlling that scarf guy, you know? It's phenomenal. I was almost bawling by the end when I got to the end of it. It's just a great game.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of emotion they can pull out of you from a game with... I'm not going to say there's no story, but there's no... I don't know. There's a story, but there's not like a story. It's just like, go. You're off and running. Just go. You don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's just you're off and running. Like you said, there's no dialogue. There's no character, like no named characters. But yet somehow they stir up all this emotion in the end of it. And God, that's... Like you said, it's unlike anything I've ever played.
It might be the most aptly named game of all time.
Yeah.
Because
it's just a journey.
It's the journey. You know, it almost makes me want to go back and play, I can't remember, what other games did they make? Flower and what was the other one? Obviously, it's nothing like... It's like Journey in the artistic stuff of it, but it's not like I'm going to play as a flower and get the emotions that I had playing as a scarf guy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But, yeah. All right, my number 9, 2011.
This might be it too.
Arkham City.
Yep.
I promise we made these lists separately.
That was another one where I'm like, I mean, Arkham City's good, but like I had trouble finding a game of the year that year.
This was easily my game of the year because I played that right when it came out because I played Arkham, I think like a year after it came out. Even though it was getting good reviews, I was like, when has there ever been a good Batman game? Like, there's no way. And I wasn't so into video games then. I mean, I had my PS3, but I wasn't like I was in the past, and I wasn't like I am now. It was more just like, I really got my PS3 because I knew Metal Gear Solid 4 was coming at some point, and that was the reason I wanted it. But Arkham City to me is still my favorite Arkham game. It seems like it's a 50-50 split, the argument between this and Asylum. I love Asylum too. I just think City is a little bit better. I like the open-ish world of it. Just gliding over Arkham City as Batman is such a freaking cool feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as cool feeling as what Spider-Man ended up being, where you're like, I am freaking Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man. But gliding and then doing the dives and everything, and the story and the ending, just like, I remember when I saw that ending, I was just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That's one of those endings that has always stuck with me, because it was just, I didn't think they would actually do it. And I'll spoil the game now. I don't care. It's freaking, what year is this? It's 9 years old at this point. They killed the Joker.
Yeah.
And on Batman walking out with him dead in his arms and everything, I was just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
What are your memories of City?
I enjoyed it a lot. However, I think, so I'm kind of shocked it's as low as it is for you. I would have thought it'd be higher. For me, it's right about where I would think it should be. I am one of, I would say few, but you say it's a lot more than that. But I'm one of the people that I think I kind of like Asylum better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's Batman in general or just the way that City was, but to me, Asylum on the smaller scale works better, or I enjoyed it more. Arkham City, it's been so long since I've played it, but it just seems like it's almost like Metal Gear Solid 5 or what do you call it? Breath of the Wild or something, where it just seems like there's a lot of space but nothing really going on. Like it's
just
an open world.
Gangs and,
it's an open world, but there's so much just space that I'm not gonna say it's unused. There's buildings or whatever, but there's nothing to do. I think I honestly liked Asylum better. Now, when was that?
09.
09. So yeah, that's why it's not on here. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was basically Asylum on a bigger scale, but to me that doesn't necessarily make it better. But it was a good game. It was fun, and like you said, it was the first time, really Asylum, but that whole series was the first time they made a Batman game feel like you are Batman. Like you're not just like side scrolling and
and you're like
battering.
Purple. Yeah.
Like you felt like you're Batman. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, for me it was only number 9.
And Kevin Conroy does the voice. Like
that
Kevin
cool.
Conroy's the man. I don't know how I just said it. I think I said Conroy. I don't know. Mark Hamill is the Joker. I mean, obviously they're both in Asylum as well, but I love this game. And that it's just so disappointing that Arkham Knight was just such a disappointment. Like, I don't know why they did what they did, especially as good as the story was. It's like, why did you have to shoehorn the stupid ass bat tank? Why?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. That game should have been right there with Metal Gear Solid 5 for my game of the year in 2015. Instead, it was my most disappointing game of 2015.
Yeah.
Because I had such high hopes for it. Oh, well. All right, I'm going to let you do your number 8. It's this one, I can guarantee we do not have the same. Because that would be impossible.
My number 8, I believe 2010.
Well, let me do my number 8 first then. Because it might be my number 7. Number 8 for me, Death Stranding.
Yeah, okay.
2019, Death Stranding. I was hoping... I'm trying to not just be such a prisoner of the moment. Like, I freaking love that game. But I do think as much as I liked it / loved it, I do like every game on this list the rest of the way, I do think is a better game. I don't know what else more I can say about Death Stranding at this point that hasn't already been said by me. I love it. You know what I realized when we were doing the Game of the Year talk? And I think that was the bourbon episode. I forgot to even mention how much when I said it was my number 1, I forgot to mention how much I loved the multiplayer aspect of it. I didn't even say that when I was talking
Yeah,
about Game of the
you're
Year.
building a community by peeing on mushrooms.
It's like that should have been a box quote. It's just so a game. Other games have done, whatever they call it, asynchronous multiplayer, whatever they call it. But it's never been like for the greater good, and that's why. God dang it! I wish you would just give it a chance. Like everything they do with the multiplayer aspect is so good. I don't really need to say anything more about this game. I've said everything I could over the last couple of months in podcasts. I absolutely love it, but I couldn't put it higher than number 8 on my list. So number 8, Death Stranding, 2019.
Yeah.
Your number 8.
My number 8, I think, is 2010. God of War 3.
Oh, I should have let you go. Ours is different.
But
my 2010 is also coming up next, so that's why I thought it was.
So, I don't know. This is one of those things.
This is tough. Oh, man.
It's kind of like chicken and the egg. What is the cause versus what is the symptom? However, my bottom 3, not in order, but are 2010, 2011, 2012. And that's when I played all 3 of these games after the fact. This is when I was not really playing many different video games. I was playing some here and there, but not like I do now. And I don't know did I just get lucky and I kind of stopped playing video games for a bit while video games weren't really all that great? Or did I lose interest because it seems like there weren't many good games coming out?
Oh, the other thing I just remembered, the other thing that 2011 had was Uncharted 3. But I had Arkham City over that. It just popped in my head.
Oh, okay. So I'm curious to see what you have for 2010. There was at least one, if not 2 others that I was looking at besides God of War, but nothing really knocked my socks off. God of War 3, to me, so I loved God of War 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And then God of War 3 just took everything up a notch. And I can still remember some of the, like, just over-the-top, like, gratuitous violence, like when he rips Helios's head off, and you just see it like stretching, and then it gives like some of the stuff, and then
when he catches Hermes and he cuts his leg off.
Oh God, yeah. And what I thought was so cool, even though at the time it was kind of annoying, but I can look back and appreciate it. The part where you're like out in like the garden and there's like the weird camera angle stuff, like that was so cool. I'm not going to say it's better than God of Thor, or whatever. Yeah. But it may as well not even be the same series. Yeah. Like, it's the best of the old God of War style. It's the best game by far. But still, if I remember correctly, kind of a weak year.
I love God of War 3. I think kind of like talking about Asylum and City, there was always a debate, God of War 1, God of War 2, which is better. I think they got better with each game. I think 1 was really good, 2 was better, 3 was even better. I think 3 was old Kratos at his most old Kratos.
Yes.
Like everything turned up to 11. They're like, oh, we got HD now. Watch what we can do.
And it's almost like they kind of changed the way we think of God of War. Like, God of War 1 and 2 on the PS2, going to God of War 3 on PS3 was like, we needed PS3 to get the true God of War experience. I think if you had that old style, but on PS4, it wouldn't really add much to it, I don't think. But that leap from PS2 to PS3 gave God of War, like, I feel like what it really needed to be this grand game.
Yeah. I still remember back then damn near every game. I don't know, that's probably a little hyperbole. A lot of games, big games, small games, everything had demos. And I remember when they put up the God of War 3 demo, it might have been around E3 the year before it came out. I can't remember. But I just remember firing it up, and you go to the menu and you see Kratos' face there and everything, and then it fades out and you're like, holy crap. And then you're like in the game playing as Kratos. I was like, just like, and God of War 2 on PS2 pushed that system to the absolute limits. but it looked like the first time I remember playing God of War 3 and I looked back at what God of War 2 looked, I was like, that makes that look like a 16-bit game or something. Like the jump in graphical fidelity and everything was just mind-blowing. And some of that game probably had 3-4 of my favorite boss fights in the entire series. Yeah. Like the fight with Hades was awesome. The opening fight with Poseidon, which is kind of almost a tutorial, was just like and then it just zooms out and Poseidon's up here with all his water horse things with like the tentacles and then you get the fight against Kronos when it's just like the scope and the size. It was just mind blowing. And then you pull out his freaking fingernail. And every time I do that now, I'm just like, like that was worse for me than pulling Helios's head off. Was just like,
oh. God, I forgot about that.
No, God of War 3 would definitely be my number 2 for that year.
Yeah.
But it's almost 1A and 1B, really. And depending on the day of the week, I could flip-flop it. But my choice, my number 7 is from 2010, and that is Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker.
That was, okay, yep. That was the other one that I was kind of going between. But.
So, again, I didn't have a PSP. I remember being so bummed. Like, I remember the lead up to the reveal of this game. They were like showing Big Boss, or I don't think they were even showing. I can't remember if they were showing Big Boss or not. But there's like a countdown on the Konami website with like lightning and stuff. And what they were doing was they were showing what at that time was still called Metal Gear Solid Rising, when it was Kojima that was going to do Rising before he said no and he handed it off and it ended up being delayed a year or two or whatever when Platinum took it over. There was a countdown and they debuted. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they debuted both games basically at the same time. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker trailer, Metal Gear Solid Rising, starring Raiden trailer. And I was like, back then, Metal Gear Solid Rising looked so cool because it was going to be a Metal Gear style game as Cyborg Raiden. It was not going to be what it turned into where you're like throwing around Metal Gear Rays and running them up and cutting them in half and stuff. You had the cutting and stuff because they showed that in the first trailer. Yeah. But the first trailer focused on, this big like hulking thing walking around and Raiden like gets down behind him and he cuts him and he still grabs like the spine thing and does some push to get his life back or something. But you could tell it was going to be a Metal Gear game with Kojima just going more Kojima because he's got a cyborg ninja, whatever. But I remember when they revealed Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, I was so pissed because I was like, wow, a new Metal Gear Solid game.
I don't get to play it.
Directed by Kojima and I can't play it because I don't have a stupid PSP. Fast forward a few years, I think it was 2013. That should have been my game of the year for 2013. When they do the Metal Gear Solid HD collection. And they do 2 and 3 in Peace Walker. And I got it. And I played through Peace Walker before I played through 3 in HD. Because I was just like, I want to play this game. And I was blown away. I remember I was on the fence when they first started showing the first time I saw like the cutscenes were the hand-drawn kind of like comic book style.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about this, but it's really, they had some CG cutscenes, but you're talking a PSP game on a little UMD disc. Like there was limitations to what they could do. And I don't even know how powerful the PSP was, but they were limited in what they could do. So I loved what they did with the cutscenes and everything. I absolutely love the story in that game. It's awesome. It's kind of unbelievable, of course, that the boss's soul or whatever would take over the robot and walk it. It's Metal Gear, so it's going to be stupid. But I love the story. I love playing as Big Boss before he's a villain and everything, before everything goes really weird in 5 with the timeline. I mean, there's no time travel, but you know what I mean, with how it affects the series down the road. Just playing as Big Boss, seeing him kind of start, especially towards the end of that fall into villainy where he says, no, you're going to call me Big Boss now. And he gets rid of the bandana and everything. You could Fulton people for the first time. It was a preview of what 5 was going to be 5 years later.
Right.
You had your base management, all that other stuff. You could crouch walk, which is, oh God, I want Metal Gear Solid 3 remade so bad. I love Peace Walker. It's amazing. And if you don't know, like I know you saw my tweet that I sent to Bernardo about it. Like Kojima was going to call a PSP game Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, that's how important this game was to him. At the end of the day, I don't remember if it was Konami or him that ended up saying, we're gonna drop the 5, just call it Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. But that's how important this story is to him and to all the lore of Metal Gear and everything. I absolutely love it. You can tell even when you play the HD version that it's a PSP game, just made a little bit prettier. But it doesn't take away from the fun. The only thing I don't really like about it is the bosses are just the robots.
Yeah.
But again, you're working with the PSP.
Right, very limited.
I think if they would have made Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker as a PS3 game, I think we would have had a rogues gallery as the bosses. And maybe you'd have a couple AI. But again, the AI stuff was all around the story, so maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you just would have had a couple additional boss fights against hot, cold, freezing man or something. But it's ridiculous, but it's ridiculous in all the good ways. And I still love Peace Walker to this day. I've only played through it twice. First time I played through it, I didn't get the good ending. Second time I did, but I had to call in somebody to help me with the final boss fight. I know when we did our So You Call Yourself a Gamer or whatever challenge.
That boss fight, that killed me.
It was rough.
That was bad. Yeah.
But, yep. My number 7 for the decade, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker in 2010. What's your number 7, Sean?
My number 7 is... Let's see the year. I guess it would be 16.
Oh, does it start with an F?
No.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, that's 16. So is it 15?
Is it Metal Gear Solid 5?
No, that's there. What year is this?
Is it Shovel Knight?
It's Shovel Knight.
Okay, that's 14.
That came out before I moved here?
Yes.
That's what was throwing me for a loop. I could have sworn it was at least 15, but anyway, yeah.
It came out on PlayStation in 15. It came to Wii U and 3DS in 14. We played it in 15.
Okay, well then now I feel kind of weird putting it. But yeah, it's my 14 game.
By the way, it's also my number 6. I mean, it's your 7. I'm saying we could tag team it back again because you're on 7. My next will be 6. That was my foot.
So you counted it.
Okay.
I was just laughing at your tag team back again. So you counted it as 2014 also.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I feel validated.
Even though we just included Cuphead in our game of the year for 2019. Whatever. Well, it doesn't matter.
I remember when you first told me about this game, and now that I'm thinking back, I do remember that when I first heard about it, I had not yet moved here.
Yeah.
But I remember you talking about, there's this game Shovel Knight. And I'm like, what? Shovel Knight? And you're like, but just it's cool. Like, and I looked it up. I'm like, oh my God, this looks amazing. And it exceeded my expectations. I mean, it was everything I wanted. It's, the classic 8-bit, but not really 8-bit style. Like 8-bit, but above and beyond anything Nintendo could ever hope to accomplish. The music is unbelievable.
It's still to this day probably my favorite soundtrack of this last decade. It's so good.
More than Death Stranding?
It's so different. It's up to, this and The Messenger as well. That soundtrack is fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just that the chiptune stuff is so well done.
But I mean, this game is awesome. I'm ready for Shovel Knight 2. I can appreciate some of these spin-offs and stuff they've been doing, and I get it. Their hands are tied. I want Shovel Knight 2 so badly. But Shovel Knight, I mean, there's still occasions where, like, I'm just bored. Like, loaded up the PlayStation. What can I just fire up and play for a little bit? And I go back to Shovel Knight randomly. I still never played King of Cards.
Yeah.
But this game is just so much fun. I mean, it's maybe a little bit sacrilege to say, but I mean, it's up there with Mega Man in terms of just a game that I'll just randomly go back and pick up and play again. Now, I don't know that I think I did. So I played through it, and then I think I started playing through it again on like, I don't know if there's some kind of like super hard difficult. I mean, I know there's difficulty select, but there's something.
There's New Game Plus, which is a lot more difficult.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I got all the way to, not Enchantress. What's her name?
No, I think that is her name.
Is it Enchantress? Anyways, I think I got Oh no, I got to when you do the boss rush mode of like the final level, and I don't think I can get past that. But yeah, I love this game. It's so much fun. It's everything that I hoped it would be, and then some.
The Enchantress.
It is Enchantress. Okay, good.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I love this game. It's my number 6 from 2014 Shovel Knight. I remember this is one of those games that Colin, way before they left to do Kind of Funny and everything, like a year or two before it ended up coming out, was just evangelizing this game. And like when he had first got his hands on it at PAX or E3 or whatever it was just like, because of course he's a huge Mega Man fan.
Yeah.
And yes, this, I mean, you talk Mega Man mixed with DuckTales.
Yeah, I didn't even mention DuckTales, but yeah.
You know, I don't know what else I can say that you didn't say. It's awesome. I never beat it on New Game Plus. I didn't get to the boss rush part. I quit before I got there. Because at one moment in time, I was like, maybe I can get the platinum. You got to beat the game in an hour and a half. You got to beat it on New Game Plus. You got to do all this. I've got a decent amount of the trophies. But the only way you got to beat the game without
without using any of the.
You got to break all the sleeves.
Of the
yeah, but it's like
the checkpoints.
Yeah, like there's no way. But the game is just pure fun. It's probably what we thought Nintendo games looked like back in the day, but they didn't. Not even close. Like the amount of just the colors and the parallax scrolling and everything that they do, and all the sprites on screen and the size and like the detail, like especially when you fight Tinker Knight when he turns into the Metal Gear thing. Like if you just picture that in your mind's eye, that mech thing has so many. It really does look like a Metal Gear, but it's so many details and it's just so cool. I just absolutely love everything about this game. I hope that I want to play Shovel Knight Dig, because I know it's not Shovel Knight 2. I gotta think that's still coming.
It's gotta be.
But Shovel Knight Dig, I hope it at least gives me something new with Shovel Knight that feels right. I still don't know about the whole dig thing and the levels all go down, but it's kind of more Shovel Knight. I don't know. I'm glad they're done with all the Kickstarter stuff. I'm so happy about that. Yacht Club, they aren't even making Shovel Knight Dig. Somebody else is making it, and they're just publishing it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'm hoping that their A-team or whatever that part of them has been working on Shovel Knight 2 for a couple years now.
Have they done anything besides?
No. They're publishing Cyber Shadow, but they have nothing to do. They're just publishing it.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got one of my mutant eyebrow hairs. It's driving me nuts. I keep seeing it. I'm like, yeah, the game is just it's awesome. I love that we've had this renaissance in pixel art and old school type of games, and I really think this isn't the one that definitely kickstarted it, but But to me, it was like it just, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, my number 6. Okay. Sean, your number 6.
My number 6. I don't know if this is allowed. I did a little revisionist history here. 2016.
Not Final Fantasy.
Not Final Fantasy 15.
That's fine.
No fantasy.
What?
You said that's fine. I said no fantasy. Now, even after I said I'm not going. Now, to be fair, Final Fantasy 15, it's not a bad game. But I only had like a couple weeks with it. I'm like, this game is really fun. And
you've been wanting to play it for like 10 freaking years
yes,
or whatever. Yeah.
So I was just like, this is amazing. I finally got it. Game of the year, whatever. It's fine. It's like a 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. That being said, I went back and forth between 2 other games trying to figure out if it's not Final Fantasy, what is it?
And you picked Overwatch.
Close. A different watch. Firewatch.
Hell yeah. It's not on mine, but
so this was...
I love that.
I know what yours is, because this was... Yeah, it was that year. I went back and forth for a little bit between Firewatch and I Am Setsuna.
Oh.
But...
Wow, that came out in 16. Holy cow.
That's another one that I didn't play. I think I played it in 18. Yeah, it wasn't 19. It must have been 18. So a couple years after. But Firewatch, talk about a game that... I mean, it's kind of right up there with Journey. It's just very little story. I mean, there's a story. It's like, hey, here's a quick 2-minute prologue. and then boom, you're off and running. You're this guy. You're in the woods, and like not much happens, but then so much happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think this was, I don't know if this was before. It's not like it's before walking simulators were a thing, because there was like mist and all those kinds of things. But like, it's certainly what I feel in this newer style of walking simulators. I don't know if it was the first, but it's what introduced me to the genre.
Gone Home was first.
Was it?
Yeah. I think that was like 14, but don't quote me on that.
But like, even just the opening, like when it's literally just like the text and like the story just got to me right off the bat. And I know you do too, I'll go back and like listen to the music. I had the music as part of my wedding, the intro music, the prologue music. It's just also beautiful. The world is beautiful. I still can't believe we never got, and probably will never get, Firewatch VR.
Nope, now that Valve owns them.
It seems like the kind of thing somebody out there could have just like hacked it and like made a VR, but whatever. But even just walking around not in VR, the game is beautiful. And I remember I kept waiting for something to happen. I'm like, what is going on behind the scenes here? What is eventually going to come out? And, you know, we're eventually going to find out what is really happening. And not in a bad way, but it turns out there was nothing. Like, and that was the right choice. It would have been too easy to like throw some curveball at the end and be like, no, this is what's going on. This is why this happened. And this is, no, it's just, it's all very real. And you're just like, there you go. It's been
Somebody did mod it. Now I wish I had a PC just for this stupid game.
But I mean, I don't want to spoil. I'm sure pretty much anybody that cares to play it has played it. But like, and then at the end, I mean, I guess I can kind of spoil this. At the end, like the last mission, whatever you want to call it, the last day, I was so mentally like torn. I kind of knew in the back of my mind, you're never going to meet Delilah. You're never going to see her. But I'm like, I want to meet her. Like, I want to meet this person. Shout out to Sissy Jones. She's awesome. I want to meet her. I want to meet this person I've been talking to through this whole game. But then part of me was also like, I also kind of don't. And I kind of figured you wouldn't, and you don't. But I just got so attached to not just her, but just the story in general, to where if she asked me something and I was busy doing something else, or I wasn't paying attention, or I couldn't figure out what to say, and I missed my window to respond, and then she's like, well, okay, I'm sorry, didn't mean to bother you. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, and you like, oh God, it's so weird. Looking back, I'm glad I picked this over so soon. It's definitely Firewatch for me. But it's just such a cool game. And that's another one that I've gone back and randomly picked up a couple times. And my wife, Brittany, she loves this game. And I got just as much enjoyment out of watching her play through it as I did playing through it. There's not much of a gameplay experience to it. Like, it's just fun to watch it all play out and watch how she plays it differently than I did with the different responses and stuff, and the whole soundtrack. I mean, I was talking about the music and the intro, the prologue, whatever, but the whole soundtrack is awesome.
Yep.
That's all I got. Firewatch number 6.
And that game also, when you said about Journey, the thing that I thought of then was those games have both stuck with me, and it's like Firewatch. It's like I want to play through it again, but I almost don't, because it was such a cool experience that first time, and unlike anything.
Yeah,
I ever
it's
had
never.
Before, you know,
when I watched Brittany play through it, it was cool. I think I've only played through it twice.
Yeah,
but I basically watched Brittany play through the entire thing, and I've never had. It's never quite the same as that first playthrough, but even so, it's still very, very good.
Yeah.
It'll just never be as good as that first time.
Yeah. Good pick. I like that. My number 5 is also from 2016, and that would be, no shock to you, Overwatch. I mean, Uncharted 4. Like we just did on the last episode, to me it's the best Uncharted game. Some people still like 2 or 3 better. I don't. I just think they got the gameplay, the gunplay and everything so much as good as Naughty Dog gunplay can get. As great as they are, it's like they've never been great at combat in any of the games.
Yeah.
And there were some things that overstayed their welcome. Like there's too many sliding sections and rope section where you got to slide and jump to the rope, kind of like Jedi Fallen Order. And then there's the winch on the Jeep. But I like the Jeep. The Jeep wasn't as annoying as the Bat Tank was because you didn't have to like use the Jeep to fight every boss in the game. You know,
right?
It might be a little bit too long. It probably could have been. It really only needed to be like 12 hours. I think I beat it in around 15 or 16, something like that. But at the time, the most beautiful game. Still one of the prettiest games I've ever seen in my life. Perfectly acted, obviously, with Nate and Sully and Elena and everybody that's in it. And you get to meet Nate's brother. And it was just the perfect end to a series that I absolutely love. Now, the rumors are that it's coming back, but it won't be with Drake. It'll be with somebody else. I don't know if it'll be with his brother or if it'll be like a prequel or what, or you'll play as Sully 40 years ago. I have no idea what it could be. I mean,
maybe
you'll
play,
but I'm not going to say it.
Tom Holland.
Don't say that. Or Marky Mark. But yeah, it's one of my favorite endings of all time. That's why this game is so high up to me, is because the ending was just, other than Metal Gear Solid 3, it's my favorite ending in a video game. Period. Like, they're both, like, Metal Gear Solid 3, I'll never forget the first time I award you the title Big Boss, and then tear goes down his eye when he's saluting the boss's grave and everything. And I'm not going to talk about the ending of Uncharted 4, but it's just so emotional. And I was just in tears as the credits rolled. It was just such a perfect end to all these characters and everything that it's way up at number 5, although the gameplay isn't the 5th best out of all these games. The story and the acting and the presentation and the culmination when you get to that final boss fight. Some people didn't like it. I freaking loved it. I loved it. And all the set pieces are there and everything. It was just the most Uncharted experience ever. So the things I didn't like about the gameplay and it being a little bit too long, they're all overshadowed by how perfectly the story was and how it all played out.
Yeah. That reminds me, I should have said this on the actual podcast, and I totally forgot. The end of Bloodborne is very... The final boss you fight in like this field of like flowers and stuff. It was very Metal Gear Solid 3-esque. Like when I got there, I'm like, "This.
Wait a minute, am I going to fight the boss?"
Before? Yeah. All right. So my number 5. This one kind of hurt. 2017, Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
So this game,
wow,
I cannot wait for Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
That being said, I've soured on this game a little bit. The whole...
It's just I applaud
them. Yeah, I applaud them for doing something different, but the whole breakable weapons and... Ooh, you're in a cold place, so put on your heavier coat. Like all this stuff.
Like
it's
no
not
dungeons.
Zelda. Yeah, no dungeons, at least the way we know dungeons. Is a fantastic game. When I first got it, I'm like, this might be my new favorite game of all time. And I was like, nah, it's not better than Ocarina. It's also not better than Link to the Past. And now here we are, and I'm just looking at my last 10 game of the years, and it's only number 5. I feel like I've maybe talked about this game almost more than any other game on this podcast. Mm-hmm. There's not much more to say. I'm not going to sit here and trash it, but I've soured on it a little bit over the years. I'm kind of shocked it's only number 5 on here, but it is. But Breath of the Wild 2, knowing nothing more than just the fact that it's coming, is one of my most anticipated games.
God, I hope it comes out this year.
I can't. I mean, maybe, but there are a lot of things as we've discussed ad nauseum on this podcast that I hope they change for Breath of the Wild 2. And I kind of am starting to think they probably won't. Otherwise, they wouldn't call it Breath of the Wild 2. They're not going to all of a sudden be like, yeah, your weapons don't break. And yeah, there's Fire Temple and Forest
not
Temple.
Open world. There's no stamina. Yeah.
So I'm not worried. I'm going to get this game no matter what it is, and I'm going to enjoy it. But there's part of me that yearns for, Ocarina and even Twilight Princess, like old school 3D Zelda games.
Yeah.
But yeah, number 5, Breath of the Wild.
My number 4, 2013. Just talked about this on the podcast, Link Between Worlds.
What number is this?
4.
Okay, it's my 4 too. I wasn't looking. One quick thing I have in notes here. Holy crap. 2013 had Link Between Worlds, Grand Theft Auto 5, and The Last of Us. Like,
it was tough for me, but it's like
I'm like I guess it's got to be Link Between Worlds, but my Grand Theft Auto is Grand Theft Auto. Like a game you've put like 1,000 hours into or whatever.
Probably.
And The Last of Us, I mean, I loved that game. I still have not yet gotten the desire to go back and play through it again. I tried to maybe a year or so ago, and I didn't get very far, and then I lost interest. But yeah, that was a big year.
2013. If we were podcasting back then, you think I was torn on Death Stranding and RE2 and Horizon and Breath of the Wild. I can't imagine going back in time. If I did play, because I didn't play The Last of Us till it came to PS4, I had already had the ending spoiled for me, which is one of the reasons I think that it's always been knocked down a couple pegs, because I already knew. I didn't know exactly how it played out, but I knew basically the gist of the ending.
Yeah.
And then Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, it's hard to say Link Between Worlds was my game of the year when you think of those games, but I'm not saying it's the best game that year. These are our favorite games. And especially after just playing through Link Between Worlds again and 100%ing it for the first time, the game's just absolutely magical. As a 2D Zelda fan, there's really nothing more I could want from a game, especially from a reimagining of one of my 2 favorite games of all time. It's just amazing. There's really nothing else I can say. I just talked about it for like 20 minutes on the podcast probably. But yeah, it's my number 4. And you said it's your number 4 too.
It's my number 4 also. I cannot say this game is as good as Link to the Past, obviously, but it is not that far behind.
No, it's not.
I remember, what I will say is I remember at the time, this is the first Zelda game, even though there were others, this is the first one that I was like, at least of the games that I played, that like, it still felt like Zelda, but you could tell they were straying from what they've done in the past, where it's like, hey, all your items are available.
Yep.
Just rent them. You can have anything you want, and you can do the levels in any order. It was just, you could tell they were doing things a little bit different, but it still felt like Zelda. It felt like Zelda more than Breath of the Wild feels like Zelda, honestly.
I still say I think they were doing that. Not that it's the same thing as what they did with Breath of the Wild, but
I can see
you can see it over there
because it's also like blonde or gray. Or something.
It's always the gray one. It's like a mute. It's right here. I see it.
It's forward.
That
nope.
Pull them all out. That was like 4 of them. Hopefully I got it.
Nope.
Damn it.
It's glistening.
Well, you grab it then.
No.
Come on. It's not like it's freaking coronavirus.
It's funny.
Damn it. What were we talking about? Oh,
Zelda.
I think it's not like the openness of Breath of the Wild. My allergies are getting me. I don't know what is happening. It's not the openness of Breath of the Wild, but it's, like you said, abandoning the old formula of Zelda and taking it in a new direction. I don't even know if I knew in the lead up to the game about the whole renting the stuff. I can't remember because I can't just take myself back.
I'm
7
trying
years.
to wonder if I knew about that before I played it or not.
Yeah, the
I
only
probably did.
thing I knew about was the wall stuff, and I was like, "What the hell?" It's like the last game. Well, it wasn't the last game, but the last game I cared about because Skyward Sword. I was like, "I'm not playing motion Zelda. I'm not doing it." Like Twilight Princess, you're a freaking wolf, and now you get sucked into the. What the hell is this? What are they doing to my Zelda? And then when I finally played it, I was like, "Oh, they actually did this really well. I love how they implemented this into the game. It's phenomenal."
Well, the other weird thing, I mean, I applaud Nintendo for what they did. I don't even want to say tried to do. That they did with Breath of the Wild and going away from tried and true formula. Link Between Worlds, not nearly as adventurous as far as, a departure from previous games. But it's also like Breath of the Wild, you kind of get what they're going for. You get why they did it. Link Between Worlds is like, what did you really add? What did you accomplish by doing this weird thing with the items?
Yeah.
It doesn't really, it changes it just enough to be different, but I feel like it adds nothing. I don't think the game really suffered because of it, but it's also like, why? It didn't really, it added nothing. It just made it different just for the sake of
I think it was
different.
just trying to make it not exactly like.
I get
Link to the
probably
Past.
because
Yeah.
it was set in the same world that they're like, we got to do something. So maybe that's it, but yeah. Still, I mean, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it is. My number 3 comes from 2015, Metal Gear Solid 5.
Okay.
Again, if you've been with us these almost 5 years, good God, that we've been podcasting. My most hyped game of all time, hard stop. Just, especially if you're a super fan like I was, and being so involved. There were so many trailers. First off, my allergy. I don't know what is happening. I'm like having a major allergy attack. They reveal it September 2012, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. Again, no 5. They're doing it like they did Peace Walker. I'm like, oh my God, this is the prettiest game I've ever seen. And still, if you go back and play freaking Ground Zeroes, again, most of it's because it's dark and it's rainy and it's playing with the lighting. It's one of the prettiest, most realistic looking things I've ever seen. And then the lead up to GDC 2013. Well, and then at the Game Awards in December 2012, they reveal the Phantom Pain, and everybody's like, "That's Snake. That's freaking Snake." And then it says the Phantom Pain. They're like, "You can see it says Metal Gear Solid V." Like what? And all the lead up to that, and then they finally debut it. I remember being at work, watching that GDC press conference live because they said he was going to show. I think they said it was like Through the Eyes of a Fox, something about Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, and they were still not saying anything about the Phantom Pain. Then they play a new trailer, and it's all the Ground Zeroes, and it's the Garbage song playing over. I'm not saying it's a bad song. It's the song by Garbage, Not Your Kind of People. And then when it finally, they show Snake there going into a coma and everything, and then the music kind of change. The music doesn't change. It's the part of the song where it changes, and then you start seeing the imagery of the unicorn on fire and the man on fire. And then I'm like, I can remember like the hairs on my arm standing up, and I was just like, oh my God, it really is Metal Gear Solid 5. What is? And then you start seeing new shots and everything, and it was so good. And then every trailer after that, from Yong Yeah to Python Selkin and all their stupid theories about Gray Fox, it was the most fun I ever had in a lead up to a game with all the competing theories and everything. And you wouldn't have that about another game because only Kojima does everything he can to misdirect you and trick the audience and all this other stuff. And then the game finally came out, and it was not my favorite game of all time. I loved it. It was easily my game of the year that year. I do think, though, if they wouldn't have just been like, we got to make it open world. You know, if you would have just had a 15 to 20 hour linear Metal Gear game, and also if everything didn't go so wrong with Konami and Kojima, who knows if we would have gotten Mission 51 to end it and all that other stuff. I don't know what I think anymore. I've gone through it so many times in my head. I don't know if it was supposed to be in the game or not. The game is what it is. And I think it was called the Phantom Pain for a reason. You're supposed to be left wanting more. I think the game would have been better. It's the best playing Metal Gear game ever. Easily. Yes. Nothing's even close.
Hands down.
But the story suffered because of the open worldness and how weird Chapter 2 was with replaying missions and stuff just to get stuff to trigger. So you could go see Quiet and then fight a billion tanks to get her cutscene, and then you can do the truth mission before you even do that. So does that mean that Snake knew the truth before he went to go fight with Quiet? It's just the open world nature. I love the gameplay of it. I didn't like it for the story aspects. But all that being said, it's still, the game was just so fun to play, and it connects the dots in the early Metal Gear. Well, not the early, I guess the early meaning the games, not the actual timeline, but the, like, how was there, how did Big Boss live through Metal Gear 1 and come back in Metal Gear 2 and you got to kill him again? And like, it just, everything, maybe we didn't need those answers, but we got them.
Yeah.
I don't think for a second Kojima was planning this since 1987. I don't believe that for a second.
No chance.
No. But all the shortcomings in the story, I do like the reveal and the twists and all that other stuff. It's just getting there could have been done a lot better if it was just a good, straightforward, linear, like you could have done this in a different way. And then, I don't know. But it's still, all that being said, the gameplay was so good that it's my number 3 game of all time.
Fair enough. My number 3, 2019, Resident Evil 2. We've talked about this game a lot. We talked about it just like a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But other than Resident Evil 7 and PT, I guess.
Yeah.
The scariest game I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait for Resident Evil 3, but I'm keeping my hopes kind of low for that. I think it's going to be very similar to 2. The originals were very similar, so I'm assuming the remakes will be very similar. The original 3 was not as good as 2. I'm not expecting the 3 remake to be as good as the 2 remake, but that would be very tough to do. To me, too, this is a perfect game. This is what Resident Evil should be. This is what, when Resident Evil 1 was made, I think this is more or less what they had in mind. They didn't have Resident Evil 7 in mind.
Right.
I mean, obviously
they just couldn't do it with the tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what Resident Evil should have been from the beginning. It's a perfect game. It's terrifying. It's unsettling when you just hear Mr. X like stomping around, and just knowing what we know now, that he's always there. Like, whether you know it or not, he's always walking around
the world. He's not loading every time.
God, it just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. That being said, I have a question, and I've been holding on to it since earlier this episode. You ranked Death Stranding pretty low. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you had said Resident Evil 2 was your game of the year last year, I know. It would have been higher on your list. I know. So is Death Stranding really your game of the year by that logic?
Yes. It still is, because I've never, it's an experience, and I almost said an unperience. It's an experience unlike anything I've ever had. But this is why it was such a struggle for me to name it my game of the year. Like, you couldn't have 2 more different, although there's some horror elements and stuff in Death Stranding. There are times where it is just terrifying. Not Mr. X terrifying, but it's still terrifying. I was thinking of this as well. It is still my game of the year, but if I would have named RE2 my game of the year,
I feel like it probably would have been around 3 or 4.
It's because it's so, I think this is what it is. It's so hard to just compare Death Stranding to
any other game ever.
Any of these other third-person action games that I have on here, because it's like, it doesn't fit the mold. It's like Journey was one of the most emotional experiences I've ever had, but like I've got it below Death Stranding. I've got it below Arkham City. It's like, it's just so, it's like comparing apples to oranges, I think, is why it was so hard. Where do I put Death Stranding? And I kind of thought I was gonna put it higher, but I was like, I don't know that I can, because some of these games are just so gameplay heavy, and I don't have a good answer. It is my game of the year, but I think it would have been easier to rank Resident Evil 2 higher against games that are a lot more similar to it than Death Stranding is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Resident Evil 2 is perfect, by the way.
Yeah, he's correct.
My number 2...
I'm trying to figure out what this is.
I feel like
I know what number 1 is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what year you haven't done.
Breath of the Wild.
Oh, duh. Okay, yeah.
But again, it's like I have all the misgivings that you have. I really hope Breath of the Wild 2... I hope we haven't gone too far away from what we know and love Zelda to be, that you can't go back.
I'm just worried. My worry is that the only Zelda games we're going to get in the future are the 2D ones.
Yep.
And to be fair, I think that's where Zelda is at its best.
Yeah.
And so if the new zeitgeist of 3D Zeldas is Breath of the Wild, okay. But I hope they never stop making
2D.
old school Zelda games.
Yeah.
And if they're only going to be 2D, that's fine. I can certainly live with that.
So I have all the same misgivings and everything, but when I'm looking at this list, it's like when I go back in time to when we were both playing it, it's unlike anything. Like it was the game that I couldn't stop thinking of the most. It's like this and Metal Gear Solid 5 and Death Stranding, although it's low on the list. Again, nothing makes sense. The points are real and nothing matters. Like that was just such a moment, and it was a moment for not just for us, but like everyone in video games except Colin was playing Breath of the Wild and we're just entranced. Was that a word?
Yeah.
We're entranced by it, and just like the funny with if it was a game exactly like that, but it was not called Zelda, I think I would have definitely said Horizon's my game of the year.
See,
which is
I don't
so
know.
weird
It's
because
weird.
it's not a Zelda game, but
I think if
because
it
it's
was
Link,
that exact game, but not Zelda, not Link,
like of Gods and Monsters or whatever that's coming out this year. If that looks like it's just Breath
Right.
of the Wild.
I think it would have been. I think
It's weird.
it would have. God, I don't know. I don't think it would have been received critically as well.
Correct. For sure.
But I think maybe the general populace. I don't know. That's not fair to say. People like me who are. Yeah, it's a great game, whatever. But it's hashtag not my Zelda. I think we would maybe like it better if it wasn't Zelda.
But if it wasn't Zelda, I don't know that I would have even played it.
You may not have even
That's
given
what's
it
so
a
weird.
shot.
Like
Yeah.
if it was just Skyrim, and I've never played
Right.
Skyrim. I've never even picked up the controller with it. But
Yeah.
I hope the next Zelda get rid of the breakable weapons and stuff like that. And give us dungeons and give us items and give us Ocarina on steroids. Is
Good
what
open
I
world.
hope.
I mean, Ocarina was that scared the crap out of me. I don't know if Siri scared me or you scared me.
I can't wait to watch that back. Here's what I found: 12-hole Ocarina from The Legend of Zelda by STL, Amazon, free delivery. No, I don't want you to tell me about a lower price. I want to know. I can't wait to watch that back. Oh my god!
I don't know if it was Siri or you, but something
Siri
scared
scared the crap out of me, and then I don't know what you reacted to, but I can't wait. We
I think it was. Yeah, I don't know what it was.
We need to put that in slow motion.
Holy moly!
Oh my god! Somebody just subscribed. Thank you, Deku Venom. I love the game. I got a lot of problems with it, but still, it's my number 2.
Yep.
I have no idea what I was saying before. Siri just tried to give me a heart attack. Don't want to say her name.
All right. My number 2, again, very much revisionist history. Very much prisoner of the moment. My number 2 game. You're going to laugh.
I'm trying to think what year it is.
Metal Gear Solid 5's year.
Oh, no, I get it. I know what it is.
Bloodborne.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to do that.
This game, I don't know
Like,
if
how
this
are you
is...
a prisoner of the moment and you can't count this year. Like, what's happening? Okay.
I love this. I mean, I just talked about it on the podcast, so again, I'm not going to spend much time on this either. But now that I really feel like I get this game, it's like I can't stop playing it.
Yeah.
It keeps pulling me back. Even Spider-Man, I beat it, and then I paused for a little bit, and then I went into New Game Plus. I literally beat the game. It starts New Game Plus for you, and I just kept on going and beat Cleric Beast in the same sitting. Like, I just kept going, and then I played a little bit more today. A year from now, will I still think of it as number 2 above all these games? I don't know. I don't know that I would all of a sudden stop liking it. It's just so much fun, and it's so deep, and there's so much stuff to do, and I feel like even though I did a lot of the optional stuff, I feel like I still probably missed a lot. And I did spend a lot of time kind of following the guides as I got later and later in the game to where I was just trying to mainline it. This time through, if I don't feel like death is always waiting for me around any corner,
right,
I may be more likely to just kind of go and explore and just see what's out there, because I'm sure there's places that I didn't even set foot in my original playthrough.
I just turned Siri off.
Good.
Because I can't ever have that happen again.
Now, what I will say, this game is definitely unsettling. Some of the there's enemies at the... Remember the crows that when you get close, they're like... And then there's the dogs, like the mangy-looking dogs. Not the werewolves, but just the dogs. Yeah. The last
They're
area...
so fast.
The last area of the game, it's never really explained, to my knowledge. That's the other thing. I don't understand the story of this game.
But I think that's what's so cool about it. Is they just drop you into this world and just say, go. Which I guess Dark Souls and Demon Souls does that too.
At the end of the game, or in the last section of this game, there are, for no explanation, there are those same crows with dog heads and those same dogs with crows heads.
Are you sure your game didn't just glitch?
And it's like one of the most, it's just so disturbing. There's so much about this game that is just disturbing and unsettling. And it's not really, the first time we were playing through it, I remember kind of being scared, but I don't know that it was really being scared. It was more just the world was just unsettling. Yeah. However, this game is, I mean, similar to, I guess, probably, but it's different. This game is not scary, but I'm always on edge playing this game because when you die, more often than not, like, it sucks. Mm-hmm. And like, especially if you've been playing for a while, and you could die at any one enemy, if you're not really paying attention, can kill you with a couple, like 3 good hits in a row, like could easily kill you, even from just like a regular enemy. So I'm just like always on edge playing this game. So it's not really that it's scary like Resident Evil is scary, but it's scary in that I could die in this game at any time and just lose so much of what I'm trying to accomplish. And it is just all these things together. I'm enjoying this game way more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's my number 2 game.
I get it. Both of our number 1s come from 2018.
Yeah, it's correct.
God of War for me. I mean, I've talked about this game so much on here again. Like, I don't. It's just the way. I always think Kratos got a bad rap as a character. Everybody's saying he sucks. I never thought he sucked. I think he was motivated by revenge. Maybe he didn't have the best writing and everything, but I never thought he was a bad character. However, they just took him to the next level with this story, and just a simple story about a father and a son that have to bury their mother who has died an untimely death. And when you boil it down, that's the story of God of War. But obviously there's so much more in that, and there's so much, it's so well acted. And when I remember when I heard when they were changing the voice of Kratos, I was like, oh, why? But old Kratos' voice, and now I'm blanking on his name, It would not have worked in this. Chris Judge did such a fantastic job with him. Atreus was so well acted. The way their relationship grows and evolves and everything, and Kratos sees himself in Atreus, the good and the bad, and he knows he wants to only pass on the good, and it's just you marry that with the damn Leviathan axe. When I heard they were doing an axe instead of the blades, I was like, I don't know, why are you doing all this to my God of War? This is so weird, but like it just works. It's one of my 3 favorite games of all time. I got the platinum in it. It was the most difficult platinum I've had because those damn Valkyries. Really 2 or 3 of the Valkyries. The rest of them aren't that bad. But especially that last Valkyrie fight, the 2.5, 3 hours, whatever it was, when it would just keep dying and dying. I'm like, no, a lot of times when you die, you're like, okay, I'm learning the patterns. I screwed up. It's my fault, whatever. The combat of the game is so good.
That's one thing about Bloodborne that I've learned is like anytime you die, it's like, all right, I screwed up. Like there are games where you die and you feel like it's a cheap death.
Yeah.
In Bloodborne, it's like, nah, I screwed up. I should have done this there. And you learn every time. And it sounds like that's kind of how the Valkyrie fights are.
The good thing about the Valkyrie fights, though, is if you die, you just die. You're not losing all your blood echoes.
Right.
No, you respawn. You're like, all right, okay, let's try this again. And there were times when I was fighting her, too, that I was like, I would almost give up 5 seconds into the fight because I would screw up and she would like do wham, boom, and she'd go down and she'd be kick me in the throat. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not even going to get mad. You beat me. Fine. Let's go. Just wrap it up. I'm going to do this again. I screwed up. It's just so good. It's such a great evolution. I cannot wait to see what God of War 2 or 5 or whatever God of War. I'm not going to say that. Whatever they end up calling it, which I think it'd be too obvious to just call it, the event. I don't think it'll be God of War that. I'm giving it
the
away.
Event.
But it's and then that kind of post-credit scene when you go back to the house and you sleep and then you wake up. And the no-cut camera, the only time it cuts is when you go back to your house and sleep. And when you wake up, you got a visitor there. It's like, hey, buddy. Lack of being. Yeah, I mean, I know the sound I was making. Hopefully you don't. Whatever, who cares? You should know at this point. It came out almost 2 years ago. I can't wait to see what they do with the next one. God bless Cory Barlog. Just fantastic game. He's right up there now with Kojima for me. He really is. He just created such a beautiful story, and I can't wait to see what they do with the sequel. But it's definitely my number 1 game of the year of the decade. And it actually, when I look back, if I look at my list, it is my game of the decade as well.
I mean, it should be.
Well, yeah. So what am I
Unless you pull another Death Stranding somehow. And
Never mind. I don't know what I was. You know what I mean. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yours is.
So my number 1 obviously is Spider-Man. I enjoyed the crap out of this game. I actually had fun getting the platinum in this.
Mm-hmm.
It never. I mean, there were a couple times where it felt like a bit of a chore.
It was just when you get down to just the crimes and you're swinging around trying to get them to spawn. That was
right.
Even like finding the backpacks was fun. It was really just the crimes I didn't like, and a little bit of the drone stuff, but you don't have to do a lot of it.
Yeah. But it just, I mean, similar to how about an hour ago I was talking about how you feel like you are Batman in Arkham City, like. And that's what this is. You feel like you're Spider-Man. Like, I remember 5 minutes into it, I'm like, I don't know. This game just seems like it's too much for me. Like, I just couldn't get the hang of, like, the swinging. I'm like, this is, like, what a main part of this game is going to be. And I just feel like it's just, it's not clicking with me. And I don't know. And then all of a sudden, I'm Spider-Man. Yep. And I'm just... it's just so much fun,
especially when you get down the timing to get those like speed boosts.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, it's so cool.
But like, just like swinging, you feel like Spider-Man, and the combat is Spider-Man, and all the acting, the voice actors are like Yuri is Spider-Man. Like I think he's perfect, and it just feels like a comic book. Kind of like a comic book come to life, and also kind of just like a Marvel movie come to life, and just like the scale of some of these fights, and
But also, like you were saying, the writing and the storytelling and everything is
right. It's more than just a game. Like this could have been a movie.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun. There's some stuff in my second playthrough that, I agree with what you said. Where some of the parts, like where you're MJ and you're walking around trying to like take pictures and just sneak through like the mechanic shop and stuff like that.
Let me be Spider-Man.
I'm like, just go back to Spider-Man. But it's like they finally got Spider-Man right. Like this game is pretty much like bug and glitch free. Like there's so much stuff going on that it's amazing how smooth everything flows. And I mean, it's beautiful, and just climbing up to like the tallest, the equivalent of like the Freedom Tower, going up on like Avengers Tower, whatever it's called,
freaking cool.
and then just jumping off, and it's just so, everything about it is so much fun. And not only is it my number one game of the year of the decade, it is also my game of the decade.
I know I figured out what I was trying to say. It's not just my favorite game. God of War isn't just my favorite game of the decade. I do think it is the best. Like, I think it's the game of the generation. Is, I guess, what I was trying to say. Like, if you're saying, like, from a technical, it's just because there's a difference between, like we've said, your favorite movie and your best, what you think the best movie is.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to say, is I do think it's also, like, the height of video games for this generation.
Yeah, I get it.
So that's it. Those are our top 10 games of the decade of the year of the ranking. I really don't know what the hell I'll figure it out. I'm tired now, but I'll figure out. I think it's just ranking our top. Oh my God. No, I don't know. Those are our games of the decade. Whatever. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. And if you got any ideas for bonus episodes for us to do in the future, let us know, because we're open to suggestions. And I'm just looking at the camera now. I'm realizing these damn shadows are going to drive me nuts.
All we need is a light down here. I know. Like that.
I got to make another. I mean, I got to buy. We need to do I'm not doing
a studio tour.
A studio tour when it's covered in toys right now. Oh, someday we'll look back on this when we're millionaires. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being patrons. We love you guys so much. Till the next time, Sean, take us out.
Thank you for playing.